Stop pissing me off. Just sit down. I'll take care of it. I don't need your help.
Let's talk about Michael Madison, an American convicted serial killer and sex offender from East Cleveland, Ohio. This guy is known for the horrific murders of at least 3 women over a 9-month period in 2012 and 2013. Born on October 15, 1977 to Diane Madison and John Baldwin, Madison was the result of an unplanned pregnancy. Baldwin, however, denied paternity and had no contact with him. Madison's childhood was a nightmare, marked by severe abuse from his mother and her boyfriends. He later admitted to having mixed feelings about his mother's death. Fast forward to July 19, 2013. Police responded to reports of a foul odor coming from a garage leased to Madison. Inside, they found a decomposing body. The next day, 2 more bodies were discovered, one in a backyard and another in the basement of a vacant house. The bodies of Shatisha Shealy, Angela Deskins, and Sherilda Terry were found within a 100 to 200 yard radius, each wrapped in plastic bags. After getting a search warrant, police found more evidence of decomposition in Madison's apartment. After a brief standoff at his mother's house, Madison was taken into custody without incident. Madison's victims were identified as Shatisha Shealy, 28, who had been missing since September 2012, Angela Deskins, 38, a Cleveland resident reported missing in June 2013, and Sherilda Helen Terry, 18, last seen on July 10, 2013, leaving a Cleveland elementary school where she had a summer job. On July 22, 2013, Madison was charged with 3 counts of aggravated murder. His bail was set at $6 million, and he waived his right to a preliminary hearing. Now let's jump to his trial, which began on April 4, 2016. By May 5th, Madison was found guilty of all charges related to the murders of Sherilda Terry, Shatisha Shealy, and Angela Deskins. The jury took less than a day to deliver a guilty verdict on all 13 counts. Madison expressed his intention to appeal to the Ohio Supreme Court, but on May 20, 2016, the jury recommended the death penalty, and Judge Nancy R. McDonnell officially sentenced him to death on June 2, 2016. Here's where it gets really intense. During the sentencing, Madison sat there smirking. Can you imagine? Mr. Terry, Sherilda Terry's father, approached the podium to give his heart-wrenching victim impact statement. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who has touched our families, taken my child, he said. Overcome with emotion, he turned and lunged at Madison, causing chaos in the courtroom. Deputies quickly subdued Mr. Terry, while Madison and others scrambled out of the way. Madison, incredibly, laughed during the scuffle. The courtroom erupted with shouts of "No" and "Terry."
How you doing, man? My name is Van Terry. Father Sherilda Terry. Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown who's touched our families, taken my child.
Judge McDonnell insisted on continuing the proceedings and resumed them after a brief 15-minute delay, and Mr. Terry was ultimately released without any charges. Madison admitted to strangling 2 of the women, but couldn't remember killing the third. Despite his defense presenting evidence of an abusive and difficult childhood, the court found the horrific nature of his crimes far outweighed any mitigating factors. Judge McDonnell accepted the jury's recommendation for the death penalty. On July 21, 2020, the Ohio Supreme Court unanimously upheld Madison's death sentence. His execution, initially set for May 15, 2024, was stayed by Ohio Supreme Court Chief Justice Sharon Kennedy until all appeals were exhausted. Now, if you thought this story couldn't get any darker, brace yourself. 3 years after Michael Madison was convicted, a new horror unfolded. On June 22, 2019, Madison's mother, Diane, was brutally killed in her own home. She was stabbed multiple times, a gruesome end to a troubled life. But that's not all. 3 of her grandchildren were also injured in this vicious attack. And here's the gut-wrenching part. The perpetrator was none other than her 18-year-old grandson, Jalen Plummer. Yes, you heard that right. He was charged with his grandmother's murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. In a chilling turn of events, he pleaded guilty to all charges and, in June 2021, was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. This added yet another tragic chapter to an already horrifying and heartbreaking saga. It's almost like this family story was written by a twisted hand, each turn more shocking than the last. So, just when you think you've heard it all, let's shift gears to another wild story, this time from a San Antonio courtroom. Victor Nathaniel Rivas, an 18-year-old, was on trial for the murder of 15-year-old Ethan Soto, and things got really heated. This tragic event took place back in May 2022, and tensions were sky high as Soto's grieving family faced Rivas. According to the San Antonio Express, Rivas made some provocative gestures towards Soto's family, and that is when all hell broke loose. One of Soto's male relatives jumped over the railing and started beating Rivas, and then 3 more family members joined in. This chaotic brawl went on for more than 30 seconds. Imagine the scene. Other inmates watching the fight as 2 court bailiffs tried to break it up. Court officers had to clear the gallery and get the inmates out just to restore some order. Rivas ended up with just minor injuries. His attorney, Adam LaHood, said he's going to be bruised and swollen. Meanwhile, the 4 family members, 2 men and 2 teenagers, got arrested and charged with assault and disrupting court proceedings. Now, why did Rivas allegedly kill Soto? It was reportedly revenge. Rivas accused Soto of robbing him of THC cartridges. According to KSAT and an arrest affidavit, this wasn't the first violent encounter. Rivas had previously shot at Soto's family home, but luckily, no one was hurt that time. To try and calm things down, Soto's mother supposedly met with Rivas to pay for the stolen cartridges, but Rivas denied this ever happening. The plot thickens. Rivas then contacted an underage girl on Instagram, asking her to set up a drug deal with Soto. He kept telling the girl that he was looking for the person who robbed him and planned to catch him when they met. Tragically, when Soto and the girl arranged to meet for the deal, it was a setup. Rivas ambushed Soto, shooting him multiple times. Soto was rushed to the hospital, but didn't survive. Now, if you thought the drama in Rivas' case was intense, wait until you hear about Monica Contreras. This story unfolds in a family court in August 2011, and it's just as shocking, if not more. On August 8, 2011, Monica Contreras was in family court with her 3-year-old daughter for a brief hearing related to her divorce. What should have been a routine legal proceeding quickly spiraled into a nightmare. After the hearing, Court Marshal Ron Fox took her to a witness room, claiming she was acting like she was on drugs and needed to be searched. Alone in the room with Fox, Contreras was asked to pull up her shirt. Feeling violated, she refused and requested a female officer to be present. Fox denied her request and brought her back to the courtroom. Back in the courtroom, visibly distressed, Contreras continued to voice her complaints about Fox's inappropriate request. She explained that Fox had asked her to pull up her shirt without a witness present, but no one seemed to listen. Marshal James Kenyon and Hearing Master Patricia Doninger were both in the courtroom. Kenyon simply followed Fox's orders, while Doninger ignored Contreras in her legal robe and played with her daughter instead. Fox, angered by Contreras' refusal, decided to escalate the situation. He ordered Kenyon to handcuff her in front of her 3-year-old daughter. As Contreras cried and repeatedly asked why she was being arrested, her daughter pleaded, "Sir, please don't take my mama." Fox coldly told Contreras she was being arrested for making false allegations against a police officer. The catch? There is no such law. However, Kenyon listed her offense as disorderly conduct in his report. According to the Review Journal, Ms. Contreras was taken to a holding cell and subjected to urine and field sobriety tests. All test results came back negative. Determined to seek justice, Contreras hired attorney Ross Goodman. On October 25, 2011, they filed a lawsuit at the Regional Justice Center against Ron Fox, alleging civil rights violations, battery, false imprisonment, defamation, and negligence. This lawsuit sparked an internal court investigation. The lawsuit also named James Kenyon and Patricia Doninger as defendants, along with Clark County, the state of Nevada, and the courts. It accused Ron Fox of engaging in non-consensual, improper sexual conduct and making sexually abusive and harassing requests. It further alleged that the wrongful conduct of defendant Fox was intentional and evilly motivated, and that Kenyon and Doninger exhibited reckless, callous, and deliberate indifference to the plaintiff's federally protected rights. As a result of the investigation, Ron Fox was placed on administrative leave on November 1, 2011, and was eventually fired. Patricia Doninger was also dismissed from her position. Now let's talk about a wild courtroom drama that went down in Florida.
Stop pissing me off. Just sit down. I'll take care of it. I don't need your help.
No,
sit
you know
down.
what? I'm the public defender. I have a right to be here, and I have a right to
I
stand
said
and represent
sit
my
down.
clients.
If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just
Let's
beat
go
your
out.
ass.
Brevard County Judge John C. Murphy ended up in big trouble after he challenged a lawyer to a fistfight right in the middle of a court session. This all started when Assistant Public Defender Andrew Weinstock argued with Judge Murphy about whether his client could have a speedy trial. Things got heated, and Murphy took it to the next level by challenging Weinstock to a brawl in the hallway. Can you believe that? The footage of their argument went viral, and it was quite the spectacle. As a result, the Florida Supreme Court didn't waste any time suspending Judge Murphy and removing him from office permanently. Murphy was given 20 days to explain why he shouldn't be kicked out altogether. Previously, the Judicial Qualifications Commission had recommended a 120-day suspension without pay, a $50,000 fine, and mandatory anger management for Murphy. But what really sealed his fate was his refusal to take full responsibility for his actions. He called the punishment harsh and dismissed Weinstock as a discredited witness, which didn't sit well with the Supreme Court. Defense attorney Keith Satchaks weighed in, saying it looks like Judge Murphy will be removed unless he can convince the Florida Supreme Court otherwise. He added that the incident from June 2, 2014 was just a small snapshot and didn't reflect Murphy's years of service to Brevard County and the United States. So what exactly happened on that day? Weinstock refused to waive his client's right to a speedy trial, and the argument was caught on courtroom video. Murphy was heard saying, "You know, if I had a rock, I would throw it at you right now. Stop pissing me off, just sit down, I'll take care of this. I don't need your help, sit down."
You know,
Nothing
if I
created by
had a
the
rock,
state.
I would throw it at you right now.
When Weinstock stood his ground, Murphy lost it and challenged him to a fight, saying, "If you want to fight, let's go out back and I'll just beat your ass." Several witnesses said they couldn't even recognize the judge in the video because his behavior was so out of character. The fight spilled into the hallway, where a deputy saw the man grappling. Weinstock later testified that Murphy hit him in the face during the scuffle. After the brawl, Murphy returned to the courtroom and handled the cases of 7 of Weinstock's clients without their attorney present. He even made a plea and imposed a sentence in one case, which clearly violated the law. Following the incident, Murphy took a month off for anger management counseling and issued a public apology. When he returned to work, he was reassigned to a different courthouse in Titusville. Despite the JQC finding no clear evidence that Murphy struck Weinstock, his actions that day have severely affected his career and reputation. Let's dive into the story of Jeremy J. Charles DeWitt, a former funeral procession escort from Central Florida who gained notoriety for impersonating police officers. DeWitt's business, Metro State Vehicle Protection Services, provided vehicle escorts for funeral processions, but his penchant for pretending to be a cop has landed him in jail multiple times.
Don't reach for that firearm. Walk away from your bike. Keep your hands up. Keep your hands up. Go down to your knees. Do not reach for that firearm. You're being secure because you're openly carrying a firearm. What? You're openly carrying a firearm.
It all started in 2001, when DeWitt was first charged with impersonating a police officer. By 2003, he was at it again, which resulted in nearly 2 years in state jail. Things took a darker turn in 2005 when he was arrested for the sexual battery of a teenage girl, a crime that required him to register as a sex offender. In 2009, DeWitt found himself back in jail for 4 more years for breaching parole conditions, though he was released early in October 2011. Fast forward to 2018, DeWitt was charged for failing to register as a sex offender. The following year, in October 2019, the Orange County Sheriff's Department nabbed him for impersonating a police officer once again. This time, he was caught wearing a shirt with a police badge, a bullet-resistant vest, and a helmet with a police-like badge, while working a funeral procession. Just a month later, in November 2019, he faced the same charge for a 3rd time. In a bizarre twist, DeWitt appeared on the Dr. Phil show in February 2021, denying that he ever impersonated a police officer. But his troubles didn't end there. The very next month, he was arrested again for the same offense, this time with an imitation pistol in his possession. By September 2021, he was sentenced to 18 months in jail, had his driver's license suspended for 6 months, and received 4 years of probation. After being released around August 2022, DeWitt's freedom was short-lived. On November 29, 2022, the Osceola County Sheriff's Department arrested him for violating his probation conditions. DeWitt told WFTV that the arrest was due to his failure to shut down his YouTube channel, claiming he had lost control of it and couldn't take it offline. In 2023 and 2024, DeWitt faced several more arrests on insurance fraud charges and failure to report online accounts and vehicles. Currently, he's being held in Osceola County Jail without bond. To top it all off, he's been indicted on federal tax fraud charges for underreporting the income of Metro State Special Services for 2017 and 2018.
Mr. St. John, you are charged with the felony offenses of felon in possession of a weapon and aggravated assault of a child older than 14 but younger than 17.
David St. John is a name that's become synonymous with violence and criminal activity. With 6 felony convictions and 3 stints in state prison, he's no stranger to the justice system. Recently, St. John has been accused in a horrifying child rape case that occurred while he was free on bond for 3 other charges. St. John allegedly took a 16-year-old girl to a hotel on Fallbrook Drive. There, he's accused of drugging her, beating her, and raping her for hours at gunpoint. At the time of this horrific crime, St. John was awaiting trial for 3 other offenses, including possession of the pistol he allegedly used during the assault. Andy Kahn, a victim's advocate with Crime Stoppers, expressed his outrage over the situation. He's already on 2 personal recognizance bonds and then gets charged with another felony, auto theft, Kahn said. That should have been it. He added, so he gets back out again and then brings us to where we are today, one of the most horrific, sadistic sexual assault cases that I've looked at in quite some years. And I'm thinking this should have never happened. The bonds allowing St. John back on the streets were issued by the 182nd District Court, with Judge Danilo Lacayo presiding. Despite the serious nature of St. John's history, the court has not responded to requests for an interview to explain why he was granted bond. Adding to the drama, there's a video showing St. John punching another person in court before being subdued by a deputy and placed in handcuffs.
You signed the order.
Reason for the outburst remains unclear, but it underscores the dangerous nature of St. John. This case raises significant questions about the judicial decisions that allowed such a violent individual to remain free, ultimately leading to another tragic crime that could have been prevented.
My daddy owns the building and I look like a f***ing idiot, huh? Brought your dress today, you little f***ing prick? You wanna take my kids from me and act like that? You in that Shut the up. I'm trying to think over here.
Alan McCarty Jr., a man whose courtroom behavior was so outrageous that a judge considered using duct tape to keep him quiet. This 36-year-old, who was already in handcuffs and leg shackles, managed to turn his sentencing hearing into a spectacle by reading a book and ignoring the judge. Despite his antics, McCarty was sentenced to 20 years in prison for threatening Circuit Judge Stacia Warren, along with an additional 10 days for contempt of court due to his profane outbursts. McCarty didn't stay silent for long. When Circuit Judge Matt Foxman mentioned that McCarty had threatened the unborn child of a prosecutor during his trial, McCarty erupted. Foxman ordered McCarty to be removed from the courtroom, and deputies had to drag him out as he continued to hurl expletives at the judge and assistant state attorney.
What a bunch of guys, you stupid piece of
Then also,
You threatened my life. You
back room.
suck my No, I'm not standing up.
Stop resisting.
I'm not resisting, I'm just not
Stand up.
I'm not standing. I don't have to stand.
McCarty spent the rest of the hearing in a small room behind the courtroom, where he could listen to the proceedings over a speaker and watch through one-way glass. Even from there, he continued to shout, loud enough to be heard through the glass, which trembled at one point as something struck it. Before his arrest, McCarty lived in Milton in Santa Rosa County. In August, a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of threats or extortion and 2 counts of corruption by threat against a public official for threatening Judge Warren and the dispatchers who took his 911 calls. McCarty had called 911 to rant about Warren because he believed she was responsible for his children being taken away. However, Judge Foxman pointed out that Warren was not the judge in the custody case and that McCarty didn't even have custody of the children to begin with. During the trial, McCarty also cursed and insulted his own assistant public defender, Ryan Belanger. Although McCarty's mother was present in the courtroom, she chose not to speak but wanted to apologize for her son's behavior. McCarty's antics included inviting Judge Foxman to perform a sexual act on him, to which the judge replied, "I prefer not to." Foxman cited this incident as part of the reason for the contempt of court conviction. "You also offered me to perform a sex act upon you, which I politely declined and still do to this day for whatever that's worth," Foxman remarked. The extra 10-day sentence means that McCarty will not be eligible for work release or community release while in prison. After serving his sentence, he will then serve the 10-day county jail sentence. State Attorney R.J. Larissa commented that McCarty's 20-year sentence will give him ample time to reflect on the serious nature of his threats against the judge and our judicial system. Now, this one has left everyone in shock. Michael Cox Jr., a 31-year-old from Tularosa, New Mexico, found himself at the center of an explosive scene. He was in an Alamogordo courtroom, facing charges of criminal sexual contact with a girl under 13. The jury had just announced its verdict, guilty. But instead of quietly accepting his fate, Cox decided to take matters into his own hands, literally. As the verdict was read, Cox, dressed in a suit, suddenly sprang from his seat and lunged at Deputy District Attorney Scott Key. The entire incident was captured on camera. Cox tackled Key to the ground and attempted to punch him. The courtroom erupted into chaos. People, including the judge, jumped out of their seats in alarm. Sheriff's Deputy Katie Smith was quick to respond, restraining Cox and using minimal force to get him under control. "I've never seen this happen, ever," Smith told KRQE. "I mean, I've seen it on TV, but I've never experienced it or seen it in person." So what led to this dramatic outburst? Key and Cox's attorney had just finished a sidebar with the judge and were walking back to their seats when Cox attacked. According to the Alamogordo Daily News, the jury, court staff, and other onlookers witnessed the entire incident. "This is an absolute outrage," said 12th Judicial District Attorney David Cabellas. "Physically attacking a prosecutor in the courtroom when he was only doing his job is unconscionable." The backstory to this explosive scene is just as disturbing. During the 2-day trial, the jury heard chilling details of the crime. In July 2014, Cox had touched the genital area of a fully clothed girl while they watched TV alone. The girl was visiting her mother at the time and was initially too scared to tell anyone. It wasn't until the next day that she found the courage to confide in her grandmother and aunt. Their testimonies in court painted a clear picture of the fear and trauma the young girl had experienced. As the trial progressed, the evidence against Cox piled up. The prosecution presented a compelling case, leaving little doubt about Cox's guilt. The jury's verdict came as no surprise, but Cox's reaction was unexpected and violent. His attack on the prosecutor highlighted his volatile nature and the risks those working in the legal system faced. Adding to the courtroom drama, Cox's violent reaction wasn't his only outburst. He'd previously disrupted the proceedings with profanities and threats, further demonstrating his disregard for the court's authority. These actions not only delayed the trial, but also added to the distress of everyone present. particularly the victim and her family. In the aftermath of the attack, Deputy Katie Smith's quick actions ensured that Cox was subdued without further incident. The courtroom resumed its proceedings, but the shock of the moment lingered. Judge and attorneys continued their work under heightened security, aware that the incident could have ended much worse. This case serves as a stark reminder of just how unpredictable and dangerous courtroom proceedings can be, especially when serious charges are involved. Who could have predicted that a convicted felon would physically attack a prosecutor in the middle of a sentencing? July 4th, 2017 was supposed to be a joyful day for Heather Culp and her fiancé Greg Morawski. They were planning to celebrate with family, but instead, it turned into a nightmare. That was the day Michael Davis made the choice to get behind the wheel of a car after consuming antipsychotic drugs and commit suicide, Culp said. Instead, he took the life of my best friend, my fiancé, and the love of my life with his careless thought process. Greg Morawski never had the chance to be my husband or a father. Greg, just 26, from Eastlake, was killed in the crash in Willoughby Hills. Heather was also severely injured. Michael Davis, 40, from Cleveland, was sentenced on December 2nd by Judge Eugenia Lucci of the Lake County Common Pleas Court to 26 years to life in prison after being found guilty of intentionally causing the crash. Before the sentencing, Heather addressed the court, sharing the profound impact the incident had on her life. Michael Davis has created great anxiety in my life, she said. I have abandonment issues since Greg's death. I have flashbacks when I hear or see ambulances. Driving scares me extremely. Greg Morawski, adopted as a baby, was remembered with great love by his family. Though his parents couldn't be in court, his uncle, Paul Zoharanek, read their letters. Greg's mother, Pauline, described him as having a heart of gold. He wanted to be friends with everyone, she said. It didn't matter if you were old, young, or in between. She shared a touching story about Greg giving his Xbox to a boy who wanted one for Christmas, showing his generosity. On November 24th, a Lake County jury found Davis guilty on all 8 charges. On the day of the crash, Davis was driving westbound on Route 6 in Willoughby Hills when he crossed the center line, hitting Greg's car. Prosecutors revealed that Davis was driving at 68 miles per hour in a 35-mile-per-hour zone. The jury concluded that Davis wasn't insane at the time of the crash, despite his claims of having auditory hallucinations and taking over 15 pills of Seroquel, an antipsychotic drug, before the incident. He was also severely sleep-deprived. Judge Lucci mirrored the charges into 1 count of murder and 1 count of attempted murder, handing Davis the maximum sentence, 26 years to life. During the sentencing, Davis's parents spoke, describing their son's long struggle with psychiatric disorders. His father, Gary, portrayed Davis as a sweet, good-natured pacifist who would never intentionally hurt anyone. Davis himself apologized for the crash, acknowledging the pain he caused.
I'm so very sorry that I caused so much pain to everyone. And I just wish that we could now finally all of us begin to feel just for a small moment.
In his letter to the court, Greg's father, John, wrote about the ongoing pain of losing his son. It's a punch in the stomach each time, he wrote. We'll never have any experiences of Greg beyond his 26 years, and we're scared to death the memories we do have will fade away. He expressed how holidays and birthdays have become times of sadness and dread, contrasting the joy others feel during these occasions with the sorrow his family now endures. Imagine a 19-year-old facing road rage charges decides to make a dramatic exit from an Ohio courtroom, leading police on a high-speed chase right after being sentenced. That's exactly what happened with Cyrus Matthews from Cleveland. Matthews had just been handed a 60-day jail sentence in the Wadsworth Municipal Court when he simply walked out of the courtroom. Caught on courtroom cameras, Matthews can be seen looking around right after his sentence was read before making a swift exit. He wasn't handcuffed, and there were no police officers in the courtroom at the time. A bailiff had to chase him, and the stunned judge, Stephen McIlvaine, yelled out for Matthews to come back. But Matthews had other plans. Once outside, Matthews jumped into a car with a female passenger and took off, hitting speeds of up to 90 miles per hour. Bailiff Sharon Ray chased after the couple and pleaded with Matthews to go back and apologize to the judge. "You don't want to do this," Ray recounted to the Chronicle Telegram. "That's a felony escape. I tried talking to the girlfriend and said, if you really love him, tell him he's making a poor decision. Instead, Matthews sped off in a 1989 Buick," she said. The chase ended in a crash on State Route 261 near I-76, where Matthews slammed into an SUV carrying a family of 3. The impact caused Matthews to lose control, and he crashed into a Speedway gas station sign, bringing it down. Fortunately, the family in the SUV, 2 parents and their baby, suffered only minor injuries and were taken to the hospital for treatment. Matthews and his female passenger, whose name and condition police did not disclose, were trapped in their car and had to be cut out. After being treated at the hospital, Matthews was transported to the Medina County Jail on felony escape and fleeing and eluding charges. So how did this all start? Matthews was in court to face misdemeanor charges for a road rage incident back in June. Judge McIlvaine, who'd been on the bench for 21 years, said he'd never seen anything like it. "I tried to scream by getting his attention, saying whoa. I tried to explain I'd call the police and he would be charged with felony escape," McIlvaine told ABC5. He added that those facing misdemeanor charges aren't usually handcuffed in court, and police presence is only required if there's a concern the defendant might act out. This whole incident raises questions about courtroom security and procedures. Typically, defendants facing misdemeanor charges aren't considered high risk and therefore aren't handcuffed, which is standard protocol. But Matthews' actions were anything but standard. And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. If these courtroom dramas left you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more jaw-dropping stories from the legal world. Before you go, here's something to ponder. If you were the judge in any of these cases, what sentence would you have given? Let us know in the comments below, and let's get the conversation going.